Hey, man, I think the clock is slow.
I got my pencil.
Why?
It's a Van Halen reference.
That would be more.
I was so worried about what time it was. I was like, what do you mean? Why is the clock slow? I didn't even get it.
Well, welcome to
Hi.
Outside the Inn. Hello, everybody. Hello, Facebook Live land and everybody that's watching that's not on Facebook, but you can just watch because we keep all this stuff public regardless. We are the Travis Larson Band. This is our weekly Saturday night, 7 p.m. West Coast Q&A session / discussion about all things music, TLB, life in general, and occasionally we have guests. Last week we had a lovely guest, Brian Beller. We thought of having a guest this week, and then we had enough to talk about. We thought, well, let's save the guests. So
we do. What are we going to talk about? I don't even know.
Yeah, you do.
I don't.
Wait.
You do?
I have a quick "Who's the Man" from Werner.
Already?
Hagar versus Roth.
Oh man, coming out of the gates.
That's
because you were doing the.
Yeah.
Well, I know them's fighting words, and I grew up.
I know.
I'm going to just say for myself, in their time, in their peak time, they were both the man.
Nice. That's very diplomatic.
Nowadays, I would say straight up, without argument, one of them is the man.
And we know by your not picking this fight who you mean.
Right. Everybody knows who I mean.
Yeah. I would say that if I just had to say a name and not defend it, I would say David Lee Roth is the man. But Hagar kind of had the pipes and kept the pipes, right? And he's just got the vibe and his play. I loved that version when he was playing guitar with Eddie.
No, it's the thing is there was a time where they had guitar and keyboards and singing, and there were no backing tracks.
Right.
Like everybody was hanging, and Sammy was playing the solos on the keyboard songs, and he was singing, and so that was pretty cool, right?
Yep. That was a good Hagar right there. That's cool, right? How about you, Jen? We've lost Travis. What do you think, Jen?
Well, I never tend to voice my opinion.
Way out of sync, I know. I was trying to play along, but of course I'm out of sync.
I should have used the secondary camera. I forgot I have it. If I was really on top of it, I would have done this. I would have ran over there.
There you go. Yeah.
That piano, but now I've already done it, and it seems like to do it again would just be stupid. So
be contrived, right? Jen, who's the man?
So, anyways, hi everybody. I just saw Adam from Long Island stopping in, and Maryland and San Diego. Hi. I always want to say hi to you guys, and the thing keeps going, and so hi Maryland. Hey Adam.
John Mendoza says, I've seen you twice with Andy Timmons. Absolutely amazing. Looking forward to seeing you in the band again. I am too. Thank you, John.
Gary Johnson would love to hear Jennifer's comments on portable toilets. This is why I don't moderate these.
Interesting that he brings up portable toilets, although the story of that is that she at one time had the guys in Ohio that used to work at the rep firm that we would work with when we did clinic tours and stuff, because she used to bitch about how bad the toilets were all the time. They actually gave her a container of the toilet covers. What are those things called?
Right. Ass gasket.
Ass gasket. Right. So you had your very own ass gaskets, and you also had a toilet seat with a bucket. When they got really involved, they give you a toilet seat with a bucket on it. Yeah. And that's still actually out in storage. Like, we still have that. I think it's been parted out where we actually have used the bucket for things that a bucket should be used for.
Right. Yeah. Long gone are the days where I was using the toilet seat bucket in the van. Not that ever really happened.
That never happened. But at least you had the option.
Yes.
I did have the option. And the ass gaskets were quite a topic of discussion, especially in Ohio. They don't have them there. And when
that's right.
You constantly, using public bathrooms, it kind of turns into a thing, So anyway,
that's right. We discovered that ass gaskets are one of the many regional things that you find in some areas and not in other areas. Who would have thought?
Yeah, who would have thought?
All right,
I mean, you always can do the little strips of toilet paper, but when you only have 30 seconds. Right, not anymore.
Back when there were strips of toilet paper. You remember those days?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it sounds so frivolous to talk about now.
Right?
Yeah.
Off to a good start.
Now I'll just have to hover.
Yeah, right.
What, Dale?
I said off to a good start.
Yeah, okay. Here we go. This silliness.
So, I've already got a slew of cool stuff going on here. So, we have plenty to talk about. But before we get into too much of that, let me just a few public service announcements that I always forget. One is, if you guys dig these things and you think some of your friends might dig them, share them to your page. That way we spread out the word and we bring more people to the party if they should be invited to the party. It's a very select group out there, you guys. But also this coming Wednesday, I'm going to give my second try, number 2, to the streaming live performance platform, where I'm going to be right here where we are now, and I'm going to do another live show from the Treehouse Studios. And I think, I'm going to say this so that Jen can get mad at me, I think we have the bugs worked out.
Oh, yeah. Knock on wood. Thanks, Travis. You always jinx everything.
Don't say that. You're going to jinx it, and then something's going to go wrong. But I think I'll be right-handed this Wednesday. I'm planning on playing some old stuff. I'm planning on playing some stuff that I'm scared to play. And we're going to continue doing more of that kind of thing. And then as past that, there might be some surprises, some interwebs surprises as the weeks roll on here. So some cool things happening. But I just wanted to mention those things. And then one of the main things that I wanted to talk about tonight, but we can get into this. We can either get into this one lump sum and answer some questions first, or we can kind of intertwine it all. What do you think, Jen?
I wasn't paying attention. I was reading the comments because Tom said this is a crappy conversation, and I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
What was the question?
We haven't even begun to conversate yet.
We're referring to the toilet talk, I believe. But what was it?
I get it. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Just like you didn't get the Van Halen joke.
Yeah, because I was like, duh.
All right, so okay. I'm gonna bring this up right now, but then we do have some questions to answer that we can get into as we go. But just to let everybody know, Jennifer's book is back in print.
Oh.
Moving Pictures.
Yay.
It's right here. It's a beautiful coffee table photography book with all kinds of cool stuff in it from the road and things from all kinds of different places that we've been. And I'll let Jen explain to you more about, in case you are not hip and you don't have a copy of Jen's book, you can tell a little bit about the premise of this book, Jen.
Okay, the premise of the Moving Pictures book is that I had been photographing out the window of the tour van for many, many years because you spend a lot of time in the tour van, and sometimes you just have to keep yourself sane, and that was one of my little approaches. And over the years, I had ended up with quite a collection of lots of photographs. And it had been brewing in my mind about making a collection out of them. And at the same time, while I was photographing, I had a lot of concepts about, the present moment and the future and the past, because you're always looking forward to the road ahead, and then you're always looking in the rearview mirror. But at the same time, you see those little glimpses of the present moment as they're going by really fast. So there was sort of this other, other concept of living in the present moment and capturing those moments. So I ended up weeding through thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures, and not to say that these are all the best ones, but that's what I got through in all of the pictures. So at some point you have to just stop and decide upon some things, and that's what this collection is. So I guess that's sort of the...
I was reading some of the comments like you were earlier. So did you mention the Death Star and the actual physically how these were done?
Physically, just shooting. You mean like shooting
like in
the camera out the
vehicle.
window? Yes, in the moving vehicle. I mean, there were a few times when we were parked or at a stoplight or stop sign, or just sitting in front of the club waiting to be let in, whatever the case may be. But it was always from the perspective of the seat in the van, and and it's a difficult thing to do. Photography is often about setting up a shot, getting the right lighting, waiting for the right moment, and actually knowing the subject that you're going to be shooting. And when you are in a moving van, you have none of those things. You don't have control over the subject, the lighting, setting anything up. And I remember so many times these guys would hear me just like go, damn it, I missed it. And I can't go, hey, turn around, take that off ramp and turn around, let me catch that awesome thing I saw. It was like, well, I missed it, And then they would also hear me go, yes, when I got something really
Those
cool.
Those are my favorites. You see something, and I would see your look like a cat that saw a bird, and then I would look and see what it was, and you'd be like, and you'd look and go, I got it.
So,
and it was always because I didn't just hold my camera the whole time. After a while, I'd set it down, and you'd be eating or whatever you're doing in the van, and there'd be that moment where I'd just be like grabbing it really fast and like trying to turn it on and focus, blah, 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 and yes, those were often the ones of like the damn it or the yay. So
someone just asked, they always saw me struggling. How do you get the book? Someone just asked. So I'm just going to say real quick. At the end of this, we're going to post a really cool video that Jen produced when the book came out. And also, I'm going to post right now in the feed the link to the merch page. So if you want a book, and then also Jen has generously said that for this entire pressing of the book, based on the times we're in and the fact that every little bit helps, she's going to sign every single copy that sells. So
wow.
You and Bill Wyman, right?
Yes. Yes, so it would be an honor to, yes, of course.
So
and
I just
if anyone wants a personalized kind of thing, just let me know. Or let Travis know, and he'll let me know.
So
thank you.
Yeah. And it's a really cool for us. These things are kind of like, I'm losing my words, but it's like a capsule, like a time capsule for us. And the cool thing is that it doesn't necessarily apply to the band, but for us, we'll sit there and ponder it and try and figure out where these places are. Like I see there's one with the rock wall, and I kind of look at that and I go, I think I remember that day, those kind of things, even though it was however many years ago. Various storms and things like that, different graffiti.
I've noticed an interesting thing lately. Like the first time around, I loved seeing all the pictures because I thought it was really cool how they were sort of grouped and compositionally and all the first stuff I noticed. And now I notice I can look at the book two different ways. One is just they're interesting perspectives, not knowing why, because you're sitting in a van and you don't have access to frame it the way you want. But then the other way of looking at it is just if you've ever been in a van touring band, there's just that. It's fascinating that way. It just puts puts you back inside of that vehicle, and you can just see it going by.
Right.
Yeah. That was another approach I took too, was I wanted it to sort of feel like the road a little bit, where I remember some people going, well, where was that? And, when was that? And I didn't want to specify locations and times or years or anything, or even, I didn't even put page numbers in, because I wanted it to feel as random and chaotic as the road in a way where you just don't know where you are sometimes. And yeah, I wanted it to be very vague in that kind of way. Yeah. So
Anthony says, so this means there'll be a volume 2, right?
potentially, we'll see. There's another book in the works too that's a little bit of a different twist on moving pictures, so that'll come eventually, but still related to the band and the touring experience. Is it will be another book. Yes, eventually.
Matthew says, Dale, stop lifting, your arms are getting big.
If only. I thought I'd be the guy working out constantly during the pandemic, and I haven't once. I've just been in this room the whole time. But thank you.
Yeah, but that's because you've been trying to figure out technology.
Yes. Yeah. I've been productive. I haven't been lazy at all, but whew. So Anthony also says, I'm curious if there's any music y'all dig that might not be what we might expect. That's kind of an interesting question.
Well, Jen's an easy one. I'll let Jen start with that. I think a lot of the stuff you listen to, people wouldn't expect. I mean, even just the stuff you listen to all the time.
Right.
I tend to listen to a lot of, I don't know, just whatever kind of mood I'm in. There's a lot of jazz for sure. The random day when I'm feeling a little snarky, I'll put on some Johnny Cash. And then I was just listening to Rage Against the Machine the other night because I was just like, and then so a lot of jazz and just anything that good. I really appreciate a lot of pop stuff too. Well, older pop stuff, I have to admit, like David Bowie and things like that. I even have some Grateful Dead playing every now and again. So, just kind of depends on what's going on. Sorry, I know people are going to be like, what? The Grateful Dead? No.
I've mentioned this before, but I'm a huge Stones fanatic going back to when I was a child. And so that's probably not as obvious listening to the music that I play. I also am a huge Larson Band fan, which people wouldn't necessarily expect that I listen to heavy stuff like that. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff that's, if you listen to it, it'd be really obvious. But like, I used to listen to a lot of soundtrack stuff and, things like, I mentioned last week, or I think the week before, one of the hidden gems out there in the Jimmy Page discography is the soundtrack to Death Wish 2. It is Jimmy Page's instrumental solo record. Like that's the only one he has, I think. So that's what that is essentially, and stuff like that. I was picking out Mike Post tunes on the piano when I was little, so there's that's where I learned a lot of my early expensive chords was from stuff like trying to play TV themes, like the 70s TV themes that were just ridiculous and total fusion bands.
We used to do a cover of Starsky and Hutch, remember?
Yep. We'd get a cop light and put it on the bass rig.
Yes, we did. We had a cop light. Yeah. I wonder if there's footage of that anywhere. That was a good arrangement too. We did the second season or not season.
It's crazy that you picked that out because I was going to say that, and you're really close. It was the second. The
theme song.
Yeah, but what's his name, Dale?
It's failing me.
Tom Scott. It was Tom Scott version 2, but it was like the third version of the theme, I think, because the original theme was not Tom Scott.
Right.
But it was the second of the Tom Scott versions, and he added that intro build up before you got into like the, so there was a version that started heavy, and then there was a version that started with it.
Right.
And so we started playing that version, which was a longer version.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a lot of. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say we had the cop lights like Steve Vai had on the Fire Garden tour, but we had it for Starsky and Hutch.
Remember way back in the day we were talking about calling the band Zebra 3?
I do remember that.
It's not bad. You're going to see it happen now that you said that.
Yeah. Well, because it's Starsky and Hutch. Zebra 3.
There's going to be some kids in Boise, Idaho that start a band and play fusion, and they're going to call their band Zebra 3. You watch.
Okay.
As far as the weird music, I have some weird snapshots because I've been sort of a gigging drummer since high school. And so whatever I've been playing in a band, I will try to learn to be a legit guy in that genre. So I played a lot of late 80s country, and I played a lot of early 90s rap and hip hop. And then a lot of it's just trying to be legitimate at what I do. But like one of my friends on Facebook recently posted one of those, most formative albums, and posted The Tribe Called Quest, Low End Theory, and I was like, yeah. And
right.
And as far as goofy stuff, and the reason this popped into my head is it reminds me of my father. He was he would like really sort of like not quite do up, but just real sort of old sort of corny music. And Roger Miller was something he would listen to, and I latched onto one of those tapes when I was going off college. And I just act like it was funny and silly, and it reminded me of my dad. But I dug it pretty much. Like those are some weird songs, and that guys, I liked that stuff. And I remember also, this is getting really random, but remember how they started releasing those TV theme songs, CDs, and they had have eras like 90s cop shows or whatever it was. And
right. They were usually redone though, unfortunately.
Yes. But this was an legit, honest, like the real versions of 70s. And I loved that. They were all disco, everything, no matter what it was, it just got turned into disco because it was the 70s, like Wonder Woman and The Love Boat.
Oh yeah.
Okay. That's enough of that.
But on the other end, you had stuff like the Rockford Files, which it'd take you 3 weeks to learn this song. Right?
Yeah, Streets of San Francisco.
Totally awesome. Right?
Yeah.
All these like weird, like outside tones and chords. And I was going to say, Jeff Burdick just said Tangerine Dream, and that was one of the things I almost said, but I didn't want to just keep going on. But yeah, Tangerine Dream I had on vinyl, and I listened to that to death. Like I used to play along with it with the giant keyboard rig I had as a kid. So it's similar to the one I have now, but some of those pieces are actually still there from when I was a kid.
Eric Davis, nothing better than driving through New York City in the van with Travis, Jen, and Dale. Poor guy.
Yeah, poor guys, right.
Were we on the way to the Iridium or something? That's what that was?
Yeah,
well, Eric Davis has gotten in the van several times.
You're right.
We did a Prague festival, and he ran our merch for us and was kind enough to come hang.
Yep.
That was a drive all the way from Long Island to New Jersey, too, Dun Ellen.
Yeah.
That was a little baby road trip right there. We had gotten a question couple weeks ago, I think, speaking about soundtracks and stuff. What is your favorite sitcom?
Well, I said mine was WKRP. I remember.
Oh, did we already go over this?
But you didn't maybe say yours. You also somebody
the
still
Three
said.
Stooges.
Well, somebody's still harping on this, Jen, because you never answer anything. Sammy or Dave?
Dave.
All right.
All the way.
Yeah, but have you watched it lately?
We're not, the Who's the Man is specific to, there's no
it's what boxes. It means. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Dale.
Werner says, who's the van? Number 9 you have now or its predecessor?
Oh, that's funny.
Who's the van? Well, obviously the current Death Star is the van.
I don't know, man. Yes, but I get so attached to vehicles, and I had such a hard time letting go of Death Star 1. Like, that was actually Death Star 2, but yes.
For a while, we were calling it the Death Star. We were calling it something out of Star Trek, but we can never remember what it is without the Dorks and Larry Mitchell's band to tell us what the models of these.
Oh, that was Charlie came up with that name, but I never adopted it. I stuck with Death Star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the new one, because I mean, I rode in it just now. I did 18,000 miles in it with 5 guys or 4 guys, 5 guys. I don't know. But it was, I think Kip would attest to the fact, being a 6'5" individual, that he was way happier on this last tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way happier.
Yeah. As the loading guy, I will tell you, not that I'm always a loading guy, but whoever is doing the loading, it's a different, the old van was a lot more,
Killed your back.
a lot more low back. You're either on your knees pressing stuff or you're bent over because it wasn't high enough. The new one's higher, but now everything's a deadlift, so your shoulders are destroyed at the end of the tour.
Yeah, but you can almost stand up. You're like this close.
Jen can, yeah. So
I can, well, Jason Yakamain.
yeah,
Hi.
great.
Hi,
Don
Julie. Hi, Jason.
Don Hurtline is here too.
Hi, Don. So
this
that drum set behind Travis, Don gave me that drum set. Thank you, Don.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm not
That's
sure.
mine.
Yeah, that drum set right there.
yeah.
That's Jennifer's drum set. People think it's Dale's, but that's actually Jennifer's drum set. That's why Dale's in a different studio.
That's right.
We don't let the drummer in this studio.
Right. And these aren't even my drums.
Dale just,
Oh, brother.
he's like a studio squatter,
Yeah, right. They don't
Yeah.
even know I'm here.
right? You just sneak in,
The other teacher's in a closet somewhere, and I've just been teaching all the kids.
right?
Oh, boy.
Never mind.
I have a, oh, where'd it go? Shoot. Oh, here's a, Mark Curtis says, are you guys familiar with the band Points North in California? Yes, absolutely. We've done many, many shows with those guys. I saw one about MIDI I'm trying to find again.
I have one that has too obvious an answer, but still an interesting
Oh,
question.
here it is.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm wrong.
Well,
oh, I did find it. Yeah.
Well, you go
I'm
ahead.
just going to sit here and listen to you guys fiddle about for a while.
There's a question from Scott Baker. Travis, MIDI has come a long way. I remember the big box on your guitar not long ago. Can you explain how tech has helped the band's sound? Well, this is a new version of that box, but I did have a bigger box back in the day. Both I was turned on to by Steve Morris. But this is here, let me try and get the shot here. There we go. That's a Fishman triple play, which you can stick on pretty much any 6-string guitar. And then you can play all this stuff behind me via MIDI. So like all those keyboards and things, I can route that too. And I can play all those keyboards, or I could play brains of keyboards. So what that's allowed us to do over the years is get closer and closer to bigger productions that we create in the studio in a live setting, because we don't necessarily want to be limited to a 3-piece sound, but we love a 3-piece, much like our one of our favorite bands, Rush, we've mentioned many times, where they call it the smallest orchestra in the world. And we're trying to carry that on and be the smallest orchestra in the world in a lot of ways. So MIDI has allowed us to do all kinds of crazy things. Dale has several MIDI triggers next to his drums that he can trigger segments of music. I can play orchestral things and pianos and stuff from my guitar and fiddles, and Jennifer can trigger things with her feet. So it's allowed us to add all kinds of depth and sound to the band that isn't necessarily guitar, bass, or drums. And that's been a huge, huge thing. And it's gotten smaller over the years, which is the real thing about it. Back in the old days, Jennifer and I each had really big refrigerator racks. I had a 16 space shock mount rack that probably weighed 350 pounds or more. And now all this MIDI stuff is on these things here, these iPads. So you can MIDI something to an iPad and have full-on orchestras on your iPad and play them from your instrument. So it's pretty amazing. That's MIDI has been a pretty cool thing for us over the years and allowed us to fly and still sound like the smallest orchestra in the world.
Well, I think too, one of the huge things recently with Fishman was the wireless MIDI. situation.
Yes,
right?
that's a huge deal. Yeah.
I mean, that's like in my brain, that's like, what? That's almost like wireless, electricity.
Well, Jennifer and I were talking about, he talked about the big box that used to be on my guitar. When I got that, it was 1993 or 4, something like that. And when we very first started using MIDI, that was with a different drummer even, back in the old days, because Dale is the new guy, as we all know. But I remember Jennifer just being really, really, so it's funny that you bring this up, really, really irritated by the fact that I was dragging 3 cables around on a stage.
Well, just I tend to have a lot of I need the space clear. I don't want to trip, and I tend to be the one who always trips and breaks her head open. So I didn't want to trip over your cables, which was always a possibility in my mind.
Right.
I wasn't concerned about you. I was concerned about falling on my ass for myself.
Well, no, I thought that was clear to everybody.
Okay.
I thought we knew that. Love Boat theme or Gilligan's Island? Go.
I just got on record saying I like the disco and the high-pitched trumpets of the Love Boat.
Yeah, I'd have to say Love Boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost Maynard Ferguson.
I had to think about it for a minute. Yeah. I'd have to say Love Boat.
That's also a guilty pleasure of mine, is old Maynard Ferguson, going back to the previous question. Anyway, go ahead, Trav.
Oh, no, I'm sifting through, checking out some.
Somebody was asking Jen about her instrument after that MIDI question, and now I lost it.
Gotcha. Danny People says, love the shirt, Dale. Can't wait till you guys are back at Guitar Sanctuary.
Yeah, great.
That reminds me.
Guitar Sanctuary, yes.
Yes. Guitar Sanctuary is amazing. Always such an awesome experience. Dale, I've noticed, I think, that you've been using different coffee cups every show. Is this true? And if so, what is your current coffee cup?
Oh, I kind of use a lot of them because I like to have tea, but then I like to have water if I don't want more. So I have the one from the Titan missile silo that we visited.
Oh, that one I saw already. Okay.
I also have the Marvin the Martian, I guess.
Nice.
And then let's see. I have the Moon Cup.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And then there's another cup that I've had here for a while. You probably didn't want all this, but I have this mug, and the other, any self-respecting musician is going to give me crap for this. It's cute animals with heart balloons floating.
Oh, yeah.
And, so everybody gave me crap, so I just doubled down, and I refused to not have it around. So
it's beautiful.
That's the current mugs.
I didn't realize you were using 4 at one time. I thought I was seeing different ones each broadcast, but no, you're just switching them up throughout the whole thing.
I was formerly doing that, and last time I just went big, but nobody seemed to notice. Just said, I'm going to get my team.
I noticed, but I couldn't get a word in to mention it.
Right.
Jennifer, Grace to Wonder, how did you compose that?
Oh, brother. With a looper. Gosh, I'm trying to remember now.
It was something that was sitting in your looper for a long time, I remember.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I usually will tend to put ideas down in the looper, just even little quick bits, and save them. It's an already set up way for me to record ideas, and then I'll go back through and later and go, oh, that was kind of cool. And sometimes when you're in the moment, you don't necessarily see a thing as being cool until you go back and listen to it later. So yeah, that was composed with a looper, and as always, Travis is there. We arrange together where there, even with that little bit, he helped arrange that, and it's an emotional song for me. So
this is a can of worms right here, but Cheryl says, ever have a gig you couldn't wait to end? Now, I'm going to clarify that and say, for me, generally speaking, it all has to do with the sound.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to be specific, but there's a gig that we will continue to go back to because of the people. But every time we do it, you're just waiting for it to end. Yes, usually it's because the sound guy is so bad, and we don't have our own sound guy a lot of the times, that it's like playing in a fishbowl. You literally can't even sense what each other are doing, and you're in this washy mess of horrendously loud, echoey noise that doesn't even necessarily sound like music.
I feel like you're describing so many gigs. Right. I'm trying to pick out which one you're talking about specifically.
Well, we've talked about the two worst sound guys in North America, and this is one of them.
All right.
Cool. Yeah.
And there's two specific places that are like they're regularly that bad.
I would agree with you though that is one of the main things that makes you want the gig to end. Yes, it's just awful sound, not having control over that, and it can, and especially not even just for yourself, but at the same time you realize it's awful for the audience too, and that's almost worse. Like I can get through a awful sounding for me, that's my job sort of, but when I know the audience is suffering, that's just the hardest thing for me. Puts me in such a foul mood.
Now, I was talking to Tom about this the other day. Tom's on here. Tom's been out with us several times, working merch. Him and Steve Harris, and Tom, much like many people, think that when you're having a gig where you get really pissed off, those are the best gigs. It's almost like piss Jen off before we go on because it's going to make for a good gig. Like it's going to be, there's some fireworks, she's going to be stomping around.
I tend to stomp around and really dig in. And I suppose that, just any strong emotion is, the passion is there, and it does make for a better show, as it were. So. I gotta interrupt here though. I've seen Scott Baker post this a bunch of times. I'm sorry, Jen. I love your EB Music Man Sterling Blue Dawn. What made you pick that as your go-to instrument?
That's the one I wanted.
Okay, yeah. I just sorry, Scott. Well, because it's so sparkly and so pretty.
No, but that's not really true. I mean, it's sparkly and pretty, but that's not why you play it.
Well, I do have another Music Man Sterling, and it's a natural finish, and I actually and they do sound different. There it is right there. This Sterling is actually the one I will use on record because it sounds better than the Blue Dawn. I have no idea why. This one does have a piezo pickup in it, so there's a little bit of difference. It weighs significantly more than the Blue Dawn, which is why I tend to use the Blue Dawn live, because I'm wearing it for such an extended period of time. And I can, on stage, I can dial in my sound enough to get what I need, but on record, the natural Sterling sounds better, and it has the piezo for if I need that.
You painted this pick guard too.
I did custom paint that. I went to Dudley at Music Man and I was like, "Hey, do you got like a white pick guard laying around that I could just grab?" And sure, and yes, that was a little bit of a transitional period in my life, and I needed to do that. So, the Blue Dawn is chosen for live performance mostly because it is a lighter instrument and it still has the Sterling qualities that I like. It a fast and speedy bass, and it's quite honestly beat to hell. And I don't want to take a lot of my more not beat to hell instruments out on the road because they're gonna just get beat to hell like the other ones. So the Blue Dawn will always be my first love, I have to admit.
As long as we're on gear talk, Sam Kovar asked much earlier, Travis, can you tell us a little about your live gear during the hour, which I haven't talked about really yet, I don't think, on any of these. But I'm using DV Mark stereo power amp into DV Mark cabinets run in split in stereo, and then I have the MIDI stuff that we just talked about a little bit earlier. So that's like the second part of the rig. But I'm running, I always run stereo sound, even if it's just to the front of house. Even if we're doing fly dates where we're just playing through monitors with a pedal board, I always run stereo to the front of house if I can. And I think, even though it's a lot of people think it's kind of a minor thing, the fact that I can have stereo ping pong delays and reverbs and things like that, and then the stereo MIDI, the orchestral sounds and that stuff, it really helps the band sound a lot fuller and richer in a live setting than if you have everything kind of coming from one pinpoint, where, say, if you just have an amp on stage and that's the only place people hear you from. So that's one of the secrets to getting a really big tone with a trio is running stereo. And Jennifer actually runs stereo effects on her bass as well. Her choruses are generally stereo to front of house, and delays and reverbs during solos and all that kind of stuff. So, and then as far as wirelesses and that kind of thing, we've always run Electro Voice microphones, wirelesses, Mark bass and DV Mark amps, and then all the stuff that's on the floor. Even though I'm not sure if this company still exists, but it's all Digitech and Lexicon delays and reverbs, which Digitech and Lexicon were under the same umbrella. So that's what pointed us towards Digitech back in the day. And they were also, they made a wide spectrum of stuff, some really great stuff and some stuff that was more consumer level. But they also were the very first multi-effects pedal. And Jennifer and I have always been about trying to be economical with things, and being able. So anyone that's ever had a pedal with 900 pedals, or a pedal board with 900 pedals on it, or if they saw us touring with Andy Timmons, he had several problems on several of those nights where we were on the floor crawling around trying to fix pedals. And that's one of the reasons I've always gone with multi-units, whether it's a rack mount multi-unit or a floor unit. And now all these great companies making this stuff, you got Axe Effects and Line 6 and everything. For a touring musician, in my opinion, that was the only way I would go, just because it's a lot less subject to issues. You don't have a bunch of wires and stuff that you're worried about starting to break connections and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. Am I missing anything, Jen?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Who's the band? You guys want one?
Okay.
Cheryl Robert Karowski says Bon Scott or Brian Johnson.
That's another one of those taboo ones, I swear.
I love it when I have the unpopular opinion, but I'm firm on it. I love Brian Johnson. I get it that Bon Scott has that whole legacy, but I love Brian Johnson.
But here's the thing about Brian Johnson. He tried so hard to sing as high and as hard as he could. He was an unstoppable, blood-curdling scream from the depths of hell for so long,
And more or less on pitch. It wasn't like
show. Oh,
what's that?
Doesn't he have a show right now?
He's got a show. It's on Access TV that they show it sometimes, where it's basically an interview show where he finds another big rock star. And what's cool about it, I like about it, is they talk about the very early days almost all the time. Like when they did Sting, they went to the old building that used to be CBGB's, and they went to the first cafe that Sting ever had coffee in America. And, so it's kind of a cool show because it's not about being a rock star. It's about where did you start, Yeah,
right.
Jen,
so,
word in edgewise.
I agree with you guys.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I don't like to voice those opinions because, it creates unrest.
Anybody that has the Rate of Change live DVD set and has watched the. Is that the one? Am I wrong about that, or is it the? Which one has the first album recording on it, or is it the Mexicali special features? No, it's Rate of Change.
No, it's Rate of Change. Yeah.
Yeah, if you get the Rate of Change live DVD set, the special features will tell you who's my favorite.
Manage your expectations.
Sound checking. I had somebody recently email me based on that, and they said, "I didn't know you sang." I was like, "What? Was I singing? Was I singing?" The thing about a guy that doesn't have to sing for a living is that you can try and be Brian Johnson for 20 minutes, and it doesn't matter. You're not going to hurt yourself because,
right.
Even if I can't do anything else all day long. Wayne, this is a good question. Wayne says, do you wear earplugs on stage? Absolutely. Every single time, even if I'm watching bands, even if I'm like rehearsing with the band, I always wear earplugs. I wear them in my sleep. I'm wearing them right now. That's why I yell.
You're wearing them right now, baby.
Jennifer tries to wear them as much as she can, but bass is a tough animal to hear through the mix sometimes, and we've played around.
I went through a long period where I didn't, and I started really noticing that was a bad thing. And now I unless it's just absolutely impossible, I do wear them. And it used to be kind of the opposite, where maybe I'll try them tonight, but I never wore them. So pretty much 95% of the time I wear earplugs now on stage, and in rehearsals, definitely, yes.
I'll share this. Sorry.
Nope, I'm done.
For bands like us, this is a lot of bands probably have this issue. And when you have some things where there's samples involved or an occasional backing track or something, and the drummer's listening to them, drummers, of all people, generally will wear earplugs because they don't want to lose their hearing. But if you're in a band like Rush, you get some molded earplugs and you block all the sound out, and then you get a sound guy to put in what you want. And if you're a band like ours, where you're kind of in a lot of different situations, you're not traveling with a sound man, you're trying to listen to backing tracks and hear yourself, and it's the unhealthiest thing in the world. And I know I'm not the only guy like this, and I'm not complaining, but it's a weird, the worst thing you could do is get in a volume war with yourself, which is letting in ambient sound and then trying to get a click into your ear through that. And it's what I do. And I've destroyed my hearing in the last 5-7 years, more than I had in the whole rest of my life. But I'm not the only guy who's doing this. Any independent level band, you don't have a sound guy who's got, what do you want in your in-ears? You just have feeds from the other musicians and a click.
Yeah.
And if you want to hear yourself, if you want to hear even a rumor of your kick drum, you're cracking it open and you're destroying yourself. But it's just one of these things that bands at our level deal with. I'm not, like I say, it's a whole thing that I don't hear discussed very much, but I'll put it out there because I know there's frustrated people like me.
Yeah. I always feel really bad for Dale because of that. But I think you're getting it down to a better science now with the new mic thing you have going for your drums. You can hear yourself a little better, and right?
Yep. And there are in-ears that you can mix in ambient noise. But if you're in an independent band like us, you don't have $2,000 for in-ears. But eventually, I'm going to chase those down. I said that the $2,000, it's hard to afford. And the wife of an older drummer that I know said, Miracle Ear is $5,000 even with good insurance.
Right, exactly. Right.
Anyway, sorry, I totally am not wanting to complain, but it's one of those things I never hear discussed. And people in bands like ours who are monitoring things on stage, it's a sketchy thing.
Well, they have systems to be able to do that. They're expensive.
That's what I was just saying.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that, Travis.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Scott. Speaking of tech, Scott Baker says, "How do you keep track of all the tech? Are vendors your friends? NAM ? Meaning, I think what he means is, how do I keep track of what's happening? What's the new toys? What's the new things that we should be investigating?" And quite honestly, Scott, stuff comes up generally out of necessity to do something specific. So, I mean, some of the tech that we come up with, we have some endorsement help and people hip us to things, but when things have started for the first time, like going back to say the MIDI guitar, that was, I want to be able to make string sounds under my guitar. How can I do that? How do I make that happen? Jennifer used to take Taurus pedals out on the road, like MIDI control pedals, so that she could play harmonies to the guitar while she was playing her bass. That was back before you could do a lot of the things you can do now with memory getting smaller.
Samples. We had the Akai SO1, and you could sample 1 second. It was like,
I have 2 Akai SO1s in mint condition, and I will sell them to you right now for how much do you got?
And then remember we got the memory upgrade, and I think you could sample 2 seconds or something. It was like, it was such a big deal, And I mean, when the sampling stuff, grew.
Right, right.
I remember getting that upgraded sampler. It was an EMU, and it was better, but it was still.
Yep, that thing was such a pain in the ass to work. Do you remember that?
Yes, it was super unintuitive, and
I mean, I'm like used to be the programmer kind of in the band. I couldn't figure that thing out to save my life.
And then for a while, for a couple songs, we were just starting to get into things like where there might be a percussion loop or a backing track or something. And I got some Roland digital hard disk recorders, but it wasn't for the recording. It was just for the multi-track playback. And then every 10 gigs or so, you'd have a skip, and it would the vibrations on stage would sketch it out.
Right.
And
that was a zip drive, right? You were using a zip drive back then.
These, I think, had an internal. I think the zip drive was for the EMU.
Oh, okay.
Memory expander for that. Yeah, so we had those flop, and you had to load those every couple songs, and then
yes.
And then the Rolands, they were good. They were good devices, but they just would vibrate and sketch out once in a while, and it was the worst. And it takes a second to realize it did it. And I remember calling them, and they were saying something along the lines of, well, if it only happens every 3 weeks, it's not the end of the world. And I was like, it's absolutely the end of the world on stage.
Right.
Don't say it's not the end of the world. My world ended.
Right. Right, I'm scanning stuff. There's actually a lot of really good questions this week. I appreciate that, you guys.
One of them I saw, Trav, and there's probably an obvious answer, but I don't know that you've discussed it on these. And sorry if you have, but somebody said, what is, well, I have it here. Can you discuss what's the coolest story you can share about hanging out with Steve Morse, Dave LaRue, Van Romain? And, there's probably a clear coolest experience along those lines, but.
Well, I mean, there's the stock answers, and then there's the early days. The early days, obviously, were way more impactful of being a scared child, meeting your hero, and that kind of thing. But I mean, I played with the Dixie Dregs on their 4th to last show ever on stage with the original Dixie Dregs. So, I mean, that's like, that Brian Regan skit, Dale, where he talks about meeting the astronaut.
Yeah.
And he's like, drop the mic. I walked on the moon.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but so, I mean, there's 2 different stories, right? There's the stories of Jen and I meet Dave LaRue in an alleyway, and she's scared to talk to him. And she says, "You're my biggest fan," not the other way around, and stuff like that. And then there's down the road later in life where people are people, and you become friends with these guys, and you're sleeping at Dave's house. One of my favorite memories of hanging with Dave, honestly, is hanging with his son and looking at pictures on the computer, and Dave videotaping us, like private stuff like that, where you just hang out and it's like real human beings, and these become people that you love, and they're like extended family, when at one time they were just somebody on a screen that you were amazed by. So, I mean, I guess that is a specific moment, but there's a lot of them, So I don't know, Jen.
Yeah, well,
I mean, there's
LaRue and I have had lots of interaction, throughout the years at the NAMM show and stuff, and yeah, there's been some really fun times. I couldn't pick one out. He's always a really fun hang. Steve is just, you know, why am I stuttering right now? I really enjoy hanging out with Steve. Oh, my computer went dead again. Sorry.
You're here.
Steve's wife, Janine, and I have a lot of fun hanging out together. We'll go grab coffees and then let the boys play guitar and do their thing. So that's always been fun too. And she is a photographer, and so we talk pictures, and that's always fun. I guess that doesn't really answer the question, but someone asked about Ventura Theater and the Flying Colors show, in which we hung out with Steve and Dave and those guys, and how we like that venue. And that venue is really, it does have a lot of history there, and it's it's one of the last old California theaters. And yeah, to be hanging out with Flying Colors, Steve Morse, LaRue, and all those guys in that theater, there's just something so cool about that. Because that's the first time we saw the Steve Morse Band, I think, and the Dixie Dregs was at Ventura Theater. And then you're hanging out and, you know,
right,
eating the dinner with those guys. And yeah, so those are the really cool moments when it comes all the way around.
And it's like more moments like that than not now in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as just, I mentioned that last week, I think of, you know, there's the unknown people that you become friends with that are just as important as the known people. There's a whole world of people that you become friends with because of music that you would not be friends with, you know, and it's like a porthole to people coming together where, you know, I've said it many times, but, you know, my example is always, how does a guy like me get to be friends with some 80-year-old black man from the South and some, you know, teenage punk rocker with a mohawk from New York City or something like that? And, you know, like that wouldn't happen if I was working at the video store, you know, or whatever, you know, back in the old days. So music in itself is just an amazing thing that way. And then take that a step further to being actual, you know, friends with these guys that you idolized at one time, and real friends. Like, I love some of these guys, you know, like you call them up when there's a problem kind of friends, you know. You know, when all this stuff in the world started happening, you start getting texts from people where you still see the text and you kind of go, you know, but they're like, are you guys okay? How's it going? You know, is everybody all right? And you're like, I can't believe this guy texted me, you know? So, you know, that's kind of the amazing things like you're saying, Jen, about this stuff. I saw where'd that go? There's like a lot of questions. This is great.
Yep.
When you're on the road, I think we all know the answer to this. When you're on the road, well, it used to be. When you're on the road, who decides what's for lunch? That's Cheryl's question. Used to be. Now everybody has a diet of some kind that they're trying to follow. Used to be, I would just say, this is what we're doing, because you got to stay on track, keep moving, watching the watch.
No, you didn't. No, it never used to be that way. You would say, what do you guys want to do? And then we'd say stuff, and then you'd be all.
And then he would do what he wanted to do.
Right. Or he'd be like, and be all unhappy about it. I don't know.
Nowadays, nowadays you guys have to have specific things, and it's usually fairly.
Yeah, you still get all upset about it when we can't just go to Subway. That used to be the thing. We would just go to Subway, and there was no question.
I'm watching the bottom line, baby.
I think Jen and I suffered this last tour being in split vehicles. I don't think you won any battles. I don't think I won it. I was at Subway all the time, and you were doing worse than that.
I had the worst food experience on this last tour. No, I know.
You were in another van.
I was in another van. I don't know if people really know that story, but yes, I was tour managing the Aristocrats tour, and so I was in their van, and it's all fine, but they do Starbucks every morning. That's it. There's no, it's not even like oh, what do you want this morning? That's just what you did, you know. And there's not a whole lot to choose from at Starbucks for my particular food needs. And so, hard-boiled egg, apple slices, and that's all I would have till the food at the show, whether it was catered food or whether it was I was running out to get the food for everybody. And so many times I was crashing and burning. It was awful. Like, yes, hard-boiled eggs and apple slices does not do it for a day on the road.
My issue with Subway is if you don't eat gluten, then if you get a salad that I submit should be no more than a sandwich.
You're right. The $9 salad and the $2 Subway sandwich does not compute.
Right. Yeah. And I just started getting sandwiches and just sliding it all into a bowl and asking for the salad bowl, sliding it all into the bowl. It was so ridiculous. Anyway, go ahead, Trav.
Jim Yadin, Y-A-D-O-N, Yadin, says, I am new to your work. Welcome, Jim. What is the album each of you would recommend as your defining point? Well, I would always say the newest album.
Yeah.
But I could say there are some turning points, but I'll let Dale answer that first, and I could talk about a few turning points we've had throughout our albums.
I might be going in a slightly different direction by defining point, but if you're looking at a good point of entry to the band, I would say the newest album, and I would also maybe say the Live in Mexicali one. Like, it gives you a sense of the live, and you get 2 albums worth of the previous material represented decently. So, yeah, if you're looking for an entry point, I would suggest those 2.
Gotcha.
If you're looking to purchase something on TravisLarsonBand.com, it would be Annika and Just Happen Live.
Here, I'll one more time. I'll post the merch link just because I happen to still have it saved.
And Yaden is how he pronounces his name.
Yaden. Oh, did you say that?
I think so. Yes, gotcha. Yaden. I gotta start wearing my glasses.
So I would say, yes, I would say Annika, because that's the best album so far, in my opinion, because we get better every time, and every time you do, you get a little closer to what your vision was. But there's some huge turning points throughout the band that would be interesting to address, just based on the fact that the first 2 albums are basically live albums in the studio and with overdubs. The first album where we were really able to get into some digital recording was Burn Season. And so there's kind of a jump forward on Burn Season in being able to do more textures and layering and get a little deeper with the production. We're still learning how to do it at that point, but that record thickened up a lot from what the previous records were, and got a little closer to what, at least me personally, my overall vision is of, I just want to hear the music I hear in my head versus have it adapted to what we're capable of. I want to be capable of all of it, So from then on, it continued to get better and better on a real level, for lack of a better description.
Well, and I think even Burn Season was done on a standalone DAW, the Yamaha AG16 or something like that, where you literally still had a little, like a quartz screen, and you had to push all kinds of buttons. So we didn't even get into proper computer, Pro Tools work. Well, I guess Burn Season had a little bit of that, but do you remember that, Travis?
Yeah. Burn Season, we definitely were able to do a lot more multi-tracking and layering and add stuff.
But we started it with the standalone unit on that Yamaha thing.
Correct.
Remember?
Yeah.
And then I think we just got into Pro Tools maybe on the end, towards the mixing portion of that record.
Yeah, I don't even know if we used Pro Tools. I can't remember. I think it might have just been having automated mixing of some kind.
That's what I'm saying,
yeah.
I always felt there was a slight shift. Bad word to use. There was a on SoundMine. I always kind of felt like there was a something that I just noticed where we were just, you kind of get a little better as players from album to album, and I would notice your songwriting evolve. But for some reason on that album, I just sort of felt like it all sort of became noticeable. Like, to me, SoundMind sort of started a slightly, I don't know. I noticed
I agree.
some changes, and I don't want to say improvements because who am I? But like the songwriting, I liked some of the different directions and as players and the recording and our demo process. Was that when that changed? Maybe that's when we started a different process as a band where we were more able to exchange and email back and forth with song versions of the song up to that point. So the rhythm section, Jen and I weren't sort of just playing to, it wasn't just me trying to play from memory and Jen playing to the drums and then a bunch of stuff gets built on it. We all kind of had an idea of what was going to be the finished product a little better. I don't know if that made sense, but
yeah, no, I agree. That is when that changed. And yes, I think that album too, we started to come into our own voices a little bit as the compositions did. They weren't so obviously ripped off from our heroes, as it were, at least in my opinion. But yeah, we were going back and forth more about the demo process was definitely better. Yeah.
People are the audience is kicking ass this week with questions. There's like we're gonna have to like kind of race through these to answer some good questions. Joseph though came back and said Travis answered the sitcom question. What about you guys?
I'm one of these guys, and I'm not trying to sound smug or any way about it.
I didn't watch TV when I was young.
I didn't have a TV for 20 years. I'm
in Dale's category. I mean, not that I didn't have a TV, but go ahead, Dale.
And I didn't watch it
when I was one, like in my room.
When I was younger, I didn't watch TV, and it wasn't because, again, I'm not saying like Trav's joke is exactly what I meant. We didn't even have it. I just read and encyclopedias, but it wasn't worth it to me. I was so ADHD before that was a term that I was aware of. It would be impossible for me to sit still. There's just the thought of sitting still in front of a TV when I was a teenager. There was just no way that was ever going to happen. And then after that, I was on my own, and there was just no TVs or no cable, and so I'm lame that way.
I'm going to talk for Jen because I know her well enough, and she doesn't answer these questions. But she watched all kinds of stuff, but she was always a generation after what she was watching. She's the reruns kid, so she loved the Three Stooges. Like love the Three Stooges. She loves Lucy.
I love Lucy.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like she loved the Munsters.
I was just watching that last night, actually. I love Lucy episode.
Right. So there was all kinds of stuff Jen watched, but it's like I don't know if she forgets, but I know you watched it because I knew.
Those aren't technically sitcoms, though. That's why I don't know.
I'd say The Munsters is a sitcom, and I'd say that I Love Lucy is a sitcom. They're just old. They're early prototypes of the sitcom, but that's what they are.
Okay, yeah. I love the Three Stooges and I Love Lucy and stuff like that. Yeah.
Sorry.
If it's black and white, sign me up. I got a Who's the Man.
Okay.
Or are you going to do another question?
No, go ahead. I got a few Who's the Mans too, actually.
Okay, you ready for this? This might be a little weird. William Shatner, Christopher Walken.
I'm going Walken.
Oh man, it so depends on. Every week you hit me and Dale with these, and every
I know
week
it's a weird one.
Every week we want to go the Shatner route, if you know what I'm saying. Yes. Like we're like, we're gonna pick that guy. I mean, but like I guess in the great scheme of things, Walken. But.
Oh, you mean it's a timely thing about something you guys were talking about?
Well, every week you bring these kind of things up where you're going to insult the guy who you say who is the man because there's like a backhanded, kind of.
There's a cheese factor that Trav and I appreciate.
Right.
That's why I do this to you guys because I know it's such a hard
factor,
Right. All right.
I got a couple real ones here, or less campy ones.
You say mine's not real? What?
All right. Who's the man? This is for everybody out there. This is a guitar player question. Who's the man? Joe Walsh, Don Felder.
Wow. I'm going to let you go
Joe
first
Walsh.
because you're the Eagles guy.
Joe Walsh.
Oh, okay. I'm going to contradict myself. I'm going Joe Walsh too, but Trav's going to have much more sophisticated ideas about this.
Well, I'm going to go Joe Walsh based on all the factors that we just covered, like including like humor and generally badass and generally a crazy dude, you know. But obviously, Don Felder wrote Hotel California. Joe Walsh played on it. So, you know.
Yeah. One of my favorite things in rock and roll is a guy who is a train wreck. Like, that's rock and roll. It's cool. But respects the craft enough to just hold it together. And you,
right.
I mean, just,
stay
I don't
on
know.
the rails.
Right. I obviously don't know him, but it looks like a guy who's just barely holding it together. And it's exciting because he's awesome. He kills it. And then, but deep down, you're going like, I don't know. You're just sort of amazed he's as great as he is.
Here's the thing about Joe Walsh, which I see Gino's saying Felder, he can actually play, but I'm gonna argue that and say the thing about Joe Walsh, which is what you're saying, Dale, is Joe plays the exact same stuff and he never hits a bad note. He's 100% professional, like everyone in the Eagles. Like, that's the whole thing about the Eagles. Nobody ever hits a bad note in that band, right? Like, but he creates the illusion of loose time and sloppiness at the same time as being right in the pocket and funky and super tight, but super tight with enough of a sloppy vibe that it feels like super cool.
The perfect blend of talent and cringe, says Jim.
Wow, nice. That's a good.
Yeah.
And Trav said the word feel a couple times. There is a feel that I associate with Joe Walsh. Like there is a type of groove that feels like Joe Walsh is playing.
So this is just a little interesting nerd out thing, but the reason Joe Walsh, so what, you know, the signifying factor of Joe Walsh, like, you know, everybody that's super famous like that has one thing where you know them instantly. And Joe Walsh is just the muted notes, the chicka-choo, chicka-choo, like that stuff, right? The reason he came up with that is because the very first James Gang gig, which was a big festival, they went from being like a 6-piece to a 3-piece because 2 or 3 of the guys quit on the way to the show or something along those lines.
Awesome.
And so all of a sudden, you had a guy that was used to playing in a big band, and they were a trio, and he was just trying to fill space. I think they had a percussionist and stuff. So that's how that evolved. All that
wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's how he did that. So just for the super Joe Walsh, you know, tech nerds out there, if there is such a thing. So here's one more that this is probably easier answer, or well, maybe not easier answer, but I'm not sure exactly how you would debate it. Daryl Hall or Michael McDonald?
Wow.
Oh.
This person
That's a
has
good one.
Number. This person has
These are mine. I came up with these.
Oh, got it.
Oh. Very good, Travis. Very good. That's a good one.
And I want to hear from the people out there too. I'm looking at the comments right now. Daryl Hall or Michael McDonald? If you've seen any of Michael McDonald's videos he's been putting out from his house in the last couple of weeks, he did one on the Tonight Show the other night, where Michael McDonald.
Okay. Nice.
Where he's one of those guys. Like there's so few people in the world, like guys like that, or guys like Sting, or guys like Elton John, where you can sit them there with an instrument, and they can blow the roof off the dump hard.
Yeah.
And he's one of those guys.
I would say Daryl might be one of those guys too. But anyway.
We got a serious mix going right now, though. Cheryl says Hall. Joanna says McDonald. Scott says McDonald. Gino says Hall.
Did you answer it, Jen?
Yeah. No, I said go ahead, Dale.
Oh. I feel like I dig Michael McDonald as like his singing and the vibe he brings to stuff, but I think Daryl Hall just because it was the 80s and everything sounded the way it does, you forget. But he just brought a lot of music and creativity to the table. You know what I mean? And plus having done the live at but
so did Michael McDonald.
Yeah.
Michael McDonald reinvented a band with all his songs.
I agree, and I think I just am more aware of Daryl Hall stuff than McDonald's. And yeah, I don't know. What do you think? That's a.
I'd say,
I don't know. That is
judging from the audience, it's a very mixed bag.
It is pretty. That's a really tough one.
You do have
I guess I would have to go with Hall.
It's a little like the Cyndi Lauper thing, where you have to throw off the 80s thing that you remember about it, because the 80s just stamped itself all over everything. And Michael McDonald seems to not be saddled with that as much in my memory. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Wayne says Michael McDonald is the Nick Cage of the music industry.
There you go. What is your, Travis? I know usually the Who's the Man asker doesn't necessarily have to answer it, but what is your?
I don't know. It's a really tough one. I'd say, I mean, we played Daryl's house, and I will say Daryl is, as far as a guy that's just kind of constantly driven, like into his later years, and a guy that's just, like always interested in new stuff. And I'm not saying that, Michael McDonald isn't, but Daryl's obviously like trying to like always push new ideas in the, like he was doing home performing before anybody, right?
Right. Yeah. Live at Daryl's house. Right.
Scott Holder says Steely Dan asked McDonald to play with them. Enough said.
Right.
Wow.
I mean, Michael, I was saying this to somebody recently when I saw Michael's first post of his performing at home stuff a couple of weeks ago. And I said, I just listened to the guy and I'm like almost weeping going, when we lose that voice, there's never going to be another one like it. Like there's no other voice out there. Right.
That's a good point.
It's like there's some guys that are just born with a thing.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not
like
saying
Sting.
Like Sting. Like there's not going to be another Sting, right?
Right. That is
right. There's nobody that's going to have that voice that can sing those songs and sound like that. Whereas you might find a guy that could, physically do the Daryl Hall thing. I don't know. You know what I mean? But some guys are just born with a very identifiable thing. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Is this like the most boring stuff for people out there to be watching and listening right now? I mean, we have to be
They're asking.
maybe discussing more interesting topics, right?
Okay.
This probably,
I don't have one.
Like Jim likes to criticize, but not ever have anything like.
This is probably the most true to the format Q&A that we've done, I suppose.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, I already know the answer to this. Scott says, Jen, aside from Getty and Dave, who's your go-to bass person?
You do know the answer to that?
Well, I know in your formative years.
It's like, what is the answer?
Oh, I'm like, I don't know. Oh, John Paul Jones. Yes.
Nice.
In my formative years. Yes, for sure.
Can you speak about future plans and projects for the band? Well, Wednesday, I'm going to set up this iPad on a tripod, and I'm going to stand here and face that way, and I'm going to play a bunch of songs that I haven't played in a long time, the best I can for you. And I'm going to try and make them sound really good. Beyond that, we are working on new material. I think we have a lot of time to hone that because I don't think we're going to be playing for a while. We're in public. There's a thing that's going on now too. Not to start a huge rabbit hole, but quite honestly, even if they open up the world, touring for a band like this that tours on a shoestring budget, right? We can't really tour unless we know people are going to show up, and so we got to be careful. We can't necessarily just jump out there and go when everybody says it's okay to go until we know that the world is feeling confident and is willing to come hang with us. Because so future projects right now are working on the newest record and also trying to stay in touch with you guys and do things like this. We do have some stuff coming up where we might be trying to connect with as a band. We'll talk about that down the road. Where NASA engineers are being employed and various technologies are being researched, and we're trying to figure out, how we could do something.
How to jam.
Cool. Yeah, how could we do something really cool without giving each other poison oak?
Right. Awesome. Yes.
I'm checking out a few more things. Jennifer, when with the Aristocrats, any conversations about Steven Wilson? No.
Yeah.
I can tell you the interview to go watch if you want that answer.
I gotta say, being in that van was quite the experience. That's all I'm gonna say.
There is an interview. There's an interview with Marco about that we did on the road while we were touring.
Oh, that's right. With that.
And it's out there.
Wonderfully interesting cameraman and interviewer.
Yep.
I didn't know what to make of him, but I've seen other stuff, and
Scott says your fans are always here virtually for you. I love the sound of that. I know what he means. I love you, Scott. Thank you for saying that. It's a funny sentence if you say, we're virtually here for you. I mean,
we're mostly kind of you're virtually.
Mary says set list for Wednesday. Well, Mary, I'm going to do some stuff that I didn't do last time. For the most part, I'm going to do some older stuff. I will take some requests, of course, on Wednesday. I will play some, maybe a few things that I played last time too. And I'm going to say this, technically speaking, so people are watching now that missed the last performance. Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, when I do a Facebook Live, some of those songs, if I play them really, really well, the software that they have for copyright infringement sees it as the actual recorded version. Because I played a couple songs last time so close to the record that they shut the video down after the fact. So the stream is okay. You could stream it, and you guys will be there with me streaming it. But the recorded version will probably not stay up. So I'm just letting you know that now.
And if it does stay up, it's because you were terrible.
Yeah, so exactly. Well, when I was talking to Larry Mitchell about this too, and I said, you know what, I'm going to start. And I also told Joe Narduli from Ad Astra, I said, I'm going to start calling my mistakes Facebook notes.
Nice.
Oh.
Wow. So I need to add a few Facebook notes to each song so that the whole thing will stay posted, right?
That
should
be a term.
Idea.
Nice.
Facebook notes. So when we get back out on the road and we're playing real concerts halls and we're getting in a room with people, when I suck one night, I'm going to say, I just wanted to play a few Facebook notes for everybody.
That's a good term.
Yeah.
Make sure we didn't get shut down. Sorry, it's ingrained.
Mary wants to know what time your show is on Wednesday.
Wednesday night, it is 7:00 West Coast time.
Right.
And I'm going to try and last time I went long because I went on late. I'll try and do about an hour or so because I want to do more of these. And I don't want you guys to get sick of me. I don't want you guys to hear the same material every time either. So I'm going to try not to repeat things. I'm going to try and play, like I said, maybe some more obscure stuff this time. And I do want to keep doing them. But also the other question, and I guess that's a question for you guys watching, is obviously this Wednesday it's going to be at 7:00 and it'll be here on Facebook Live. Should I experiment with times? Because the last one I did was on a Wednesday at 7. I thought it worked okay, but should I be trying to do like weekends, weekend nights, weekend days? Does any of it matter to anybody right now? I'm kind of trying to stay off of the nights that I'm not competing with a bunch of stuff. And I know our friend Andy is doing some stuff on Saturday. So, of course, he played today, I think, at 2. And then I think he plays before us tonight. So, we're trying to at least not tread on our friends if
right.
if anybody else. So, Jim says, Wednesday is my birthday, so it will be an awesome 50 birthday present. Awesome.
Happy
awesome.
Cool.
Very cool. Well, I probably won't sing happy birthday to you Wednesday, but I'll try and play the least amount of Facebook notes I can so that you appreciate what's going on. Scott says, do what works for you. You guys are sweet. Never sick of you. Well, that's because I try not to oversaturate.
All right, it's coming up on that time, Larson.
Yep. So I'm going to mention to everybody, again, Jennifer's book, Moving Pictures, is back in print. It's available now. I am going to, at the end of this stream, post a video link for the video that she put together when she put the book together. It's got a lot of shots from the book. It's her talking about the inspiration behind it, and a little bit of footage of when she was actually taking those pictures out on the road. So it's a cool video, and that has links to the merch page on TravisLarsonBand.com, as well as I posted a few of those in the feed here. Also, in the description of the feed that we're on right now, shameless plug, all the other links for supporting Travis Larson Band. And we are kind of somewhat unemployed right now. So if you know anything, yeah, somewhat. If you would,
virtually unemployed.
I mean, this is kind of a job, right? I mean, we're working for sure, but the income for writing a new album is zero. So we do have a tip jar. Check that out in the description of the video that we're streaming on right now. We also have download links to all our, iTunes and Bandcamp, all that stuff. So check it out. Physical media, all the things, they're all in there. The www links. So however it works. You
wrestling too.
Let me just do one quick, just so I don't forget anything. If I see anybody that asked anything that I may have missed. Or
Thanks, Glenn, for coming. Thanks, Mary. Thank you, Wayne. Glenn. I keep seeing you guys. It's hard to keep track of all the hellos.
Yep.
I poked myself in my arm and I'm bleeding right now. Can you believe that?
What happened? What did you do?
Know.
What you give, you give and you give and you give.
I bleed for you people.
Are you just
I'm sitting here going, what happened?
Yourself?
What's that?
You're just nervously picking at yourself?
No, I just looked down and, I'm sweating blood. Evidently.
All right, before we go, I'm gonna post that video real quick, just so I do it before the feed closes.
Cool.
Okay.
So sorry, I'm doing that while we're on the air. Copy. All right. How's everybody doing? Is everybody okay? Are we ready to say we'll see you Wednesday at 7 and I'm going to play music?
We never even introduced the moose last time, did we?
Everybody knows my moose.
All right.
We'll talk about him next time.
Yeah, that's the only. It's been like a year since Jen has posted anything, but if you go to Jen's Instagram, it's all the moose and her shoes in different parts of the world.
Wednesday at 7.
All right, guys. See you again soon.
Bye. Bye.